Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter. On the night of August 21st, 1955, a rural farmhouse near Kelly, Kentucky, turned into the scene of one of America's most famous and bizarre UFO encounters. The Sutton family, along with several friends, claimed they were terrorized by small, goblin-like creatures that emerged after a strange object landed in a nearby field. According to the group, 11 people in total, the ordeal began when one family member spotted a bright light streaking across the sky. Not long after that, the family dog started barking, and they heard odd noises outside. When they looked out, they saw glowing figures approaching the house, short with oversized heads, large eyes, long arms, and claw-like hands. The beings seemed to float rather than walk, their skin shining with a metallic sheen in the moonlight. Frightened, the Suttons armed themselves with shotguns and began firing through windows and doorways as the creatures approached. Bullets seemed to have little effect. The beings would tumble away, only to return again minutes later. The siege lasted for hours, with the family describing the creatures as peeking into the windows and trying to reach the roof. Finally, desperate and exhausted, the group fled to the local police station in Hopkinsville, where authorities noted their visible fear and apparent sincerity. Police then returned to the farmhouse, searching for evidence, but only found empty shell casings and damage from the gunfire. There were no footprints, bodies, or physical traces of the creatures. Over 20 officers investigated, but by dawn, the visitors were gone. The story quickly made headlines, drawing crowds and skeptics alike. Some suggested the creatures were actually great horned owls. Startled by gunfire, their glowing eyes and silent flight are mistaken for aliens. Others called it a classic case of mass hysteria, possibly fueled by alcohol or rural superstition. Despite the skepticism, the Sutton family never changed their story, and no evidence ever emerged to prove it was a hoax. Today, the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter remains one of the most disturbing and debated UFO cases in American history, an unexplainable night that still haunts the fields of Kentucky to this day. Ilkley Moor UFO incident. On a cold, foggy morning in December of 1987, retired police officer Philip Spencer walked across a lonely stretch of Ilkley Moor, England with a camera in hand. Through the mist, he spotted something he couldn't explain. A small greenish figure with a large bulbous head just standing in the path. Instinctively, Spencer raised his camera and snapped a picture. The figure quickly vanished into the fog, but when Spencer chased after it, he claims he saw a metallic domed craft, half hidden by the rolling mist. In that instant, a blinding blue flash overwhelmed his senses. The next thing he knew, he was alone, disorientated, and nearly 2 hours had passed. When Spencer developed his film, one photo stood out. Blurry but unmistakable, it showed a humanoid figure with an unnatural shape, nothing like a human or animal. Experts who analyzed the image couldn't confirm it as a hoax, but they couldn't say for certain it was genuine either. The uncertainty only added to the story's creepiness. Haunted by missing time and strange memories, Spencer underwent hypnosis. Under regression, he described being paralyzed and taken aboard the craft, where he was examined by small beings with black almond-shaped eyes. He claimed they showed him versions of worldwide disaster, cities in ruins, floods, and devastation, a warning about the future of humanity. Theories about what happened range from a genuine alien abduction to a simple case of mistaken identity, with the thick fog turning a regular person, animal, or even scarecrow into something far more sinister. Some skeptics suggest Spencer fabricated the encounter, but he never saw publicity or profit and refused to have his real identity made public. With only a blurry photo, a missing 2 hours, and a story full of unanswered questions, the Ilkley Moor UFO incident remains one of the UK's most unsettling and enduring UFO mysteries, a moment lost in the fog that no one's ever been able to explain. O'Hare International Airport UFO sighting. On November 7, 2006, just as dusk was falling, Chicago's O'Hare International Airport became the site of one of the most credible modern UFO encounters. At around 4:15 p.m., a United Airlines employee working near gate C-17 spotted a strange metallic disc-shaped object hovering just below the clouds above the airport. The object was completely silent, smooth, grey, and about the size of a car. Within minutes, more than a dozen United Airlines employees, including pilots, mechanics, and managers, gathered to watch the object. They described it as perfectly round, spinning, and unlike any conventional aircraft they'd ever seen before. The most bizarre detail: after hovering motionless for several minutes, the disc shot upward at incredible speed, punching a clear hole through the cloud layer that reportedly lingered for several minutes. Air traffic controllers didn't see the object themselves, and the FAA initially denied anything unusual happened. No radar records and no photos or video. But after a local news station filed a Freedom of Information Act request, the FAA was forced to release internal documents and witness statements. The result was a pile of testimony from experienced airline professionals who swore they saw something that defied explanation, along with a few photos taken by members of the public. Explanations ranged from weather phenomena and hole-punch clouds to the possibility of an experimental drone, but none fit with what the witnesses described. Skeptics pointed to the lack of photographs or radar confirmation, but the sheer number and credibility of the eyewitnesses set this case apart. With no official investigation and no answers, the O'Hara sightings remain a haunting mystery, an unidentified craft hovering over one of the world's busiest airports before vanishing in seconds. Pascagoula abduction. On the evening of October 11, 1973, two men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, were fishing off a pier in the Pascagoula River in Mississippi when their lives changed forever. As dusk settled in, the two heard a buzzing sound and saw a glowing, oval-shaped craft descending toward them. Before they could react, three bizarre entities floated from the craft. The beings were humanoid, but not human, pale, wrinkled, with cone-shaped heads and crab-like pincers where hands should have been. Paralyzed and unable to move, both men claimed they were being pulled aboard the craft by these strange creatures. Inside, Hickson and Parker described being subjected to a thorough examination, with machines scanning their bodies and the beings moving mechanically, almost robotically. After a few terrifying minutes, they were returned to the riverbank, the craft vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. In shock, the two men reported the incident to the local sheriff's office, where authorities were skeptical. But while left alone in an interview room, the police secretly recorded the men. The tape revealed Hickson and Parker discussing their ordeal in hushed, terrified voices, never contradicting themselves once or suggesting it was a prank. Their genuine fear convinced some investigators something very real had happened, whether or not it was extraterrestrial. News of the encounter spread quickly, attracting UFO investigators and the media. Both men underwent polygraph tests and hypnosis sessions, although none of it revealed any evidence of deception. Skeptics suggested the two had experienced a hallucination, been influenced by stress or fatigue, or even fabricated the entire story for attention. However, neither Hickson nor Parker ever changed their account, sticking to the same disturbing details for the rest of their lives. No physical evidence was ever found, and no other witnesses ever came forward. Still, the Pascagoula abduction stands as one of the strangest and most convincing UFO abduction cases on record, a disturbing mystery that remains unexplained to this day. Travis Walton Incident. On November 5th, 1975, a logging crew in Snowflake, Arizona finished work and headed home through the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. What happened next would become one of the most controversial abduction stories ever recorded. As the crew's truck moved down a remote road, the men spotted a strange glowing object hovering above a clearing, bright, metallic, and unmistakably out of place. Travis Walton, one of the loggers, got out for a closer look. His co-workers watched in disbelief as a beam of blue-green light shot from the craft, striking Walton and throwing him to the ground. Terrified, the rest of the crew sped off, convinced he was dead. However, when they returned just minutes later, Travis was gone. A massive search began, drawing police, search dogs, and national media. The 6 remaining crew members stuck to their story, even under intense questioning and polygraph tests. 5 days later, Walton suddenly reappeared at a gas station miles away, confused, shaken, and with no clear memory of where he had been. Under hypnosis, Walton later described waking aboard a rounded metallic room, surrounded by short, humanoid beings with large heads and huge staring eyes. He remembered being examined, panicking, and eventually being guided by taller, more human-like figures before blacking out again. His memories remained fragmented and dreamlike. Skeptics immediately labeled it as a hoax, pointing to fame, money, and the influence of science fiction. Others said it was mass hysteria or even a carefully planned disappearance. But the consistency of the crew's stories and their willingness to take lie detector tests has kept the case alive for decades. There's no hard evidence, no photos, no physical proof, just a story that refuses to fade. For believers, the Travis Walton case is one of the most credible abduction claims ever. For skeptics, it's just another campfire tale. But for Travis and his crew, those 5 days in 1975 changed their lives forever. Varginha UFO Incident. In January 1996, the quiet city of Varginha, Brazil was thrust into the spotlight by a string of bizarre events that would be compared to Roswell. It began when 3 women, 2 sisters and a friend, saw a strange, crouched creature in a vacant lot. It was small, brown-skinned, with large red eyes and a deformed head. Terrified, they ran home, visibly shaken and in tears. Although their sighting was just the beginning, witnesses soon reported firefighters and military personnel scouring the area. Some said they saw armed men capturing a similar creature and whisking it away in a truck. Others claimed that another creature was found on the roadside and quickly taken by authorities. The city buzzed with rumors, low-flying helicopters, roadblocks, and soldiers everywhere. There were even reports that 2 creatures were taken to a hospital and that a soldier who came into contact with them later died from a mysterious infection. The Brazilian military and government quickly denied any involvement, dismissing the incident as a case of mistaken identity, a mentally ill man and local animals, nothing more. But the witnesses, especially the 3 young women, never changed their story, even as national media and investigators descended on Varginha. As the case gained attention, theories multiplied. Many believe the city experienced a genuine UFO crash and the Brazilian military recovered at least 1 extraterrestrial being, covering up the evidence. Skeptics point to mass hysteria and local rumors spiraling out of control, arguing that the entire event grew from misidentification and panic. No physical evidence has ever been produced, no clear photos, no remains, and no official documents confirming anything out of the ordinary. All that's left are witness testimonies and years of speculation. For many, the Varginha UFO incident remains one of the most chilling, unsolved cases in the history of UFO sightings.